You are listening to the Wells Report here on Talk Radio 570 KLIF. We are discussing, Debra Medina with Debra Medina. She wants to be the Republican she wants to be the Republican gubernator. She wants to be the governor of Texas. She wants to run as a Republican, and she's doing so. And so far, the Republican Party, would you say, has or has not signed on board the Debra Medina train? Ms. Medina.
There are places where we're getting a good deal of enthusiasm from even party officials. There are other places not so much.
Well, what are you going to do if they decide that you are not the person for the Republican ticket this time? Are you thinking about perhaps breaking away and running as an independent?
Well, the party, and I'm one. I mean, I've been a Republican county chair. I was in my third term whenever I decided to pursue the governor's race. The people that decide on who the nominee is the people that vote in the primary. That's not the party's choice. It's the Texas Republicans' choice. So we're encouraging everybody to vote in the Republican primary. We're going to do all we can to draw as many people to that primary. We're reaching out and touching communities. I think that traditionally Republicans haven't paid a lot of attention to, especially in the primary contest. You're starting to see some of that dialogue already that, Rick Perry, the fewer people vote, the better off he is. I don't think that's good for Texas, and so we're going to do everything we can and hope that we have a really strong turnout in the primary on March 2nd, Texas Independence Day.
Let me get a couple of phone calls here. Kevin and Levon, what's your question for Debra Medina?
Thank you for taking my call. Ms. Medina, we've got a lot of issues here. We've talked a lot about border.
Hey, Kevin, you got to ask a question, man. We got so many calls. We just ask your question, okay?
If by chance you get to raise your hand, and what are you going to do with your livelihood and even your life to protect our Constitution, the Texas Constitution, and our U.S. Constitution, and to weed out those that are opposed against it?
Yeah, what are you going to do that? Because I'll be perfectly honest with you, every Constitution in this country right now is under assault.
That's right. I had an opportunity to speak in Austin at the Sovereignty or Secession rally and talk a little bit about that. We've got two tools available to us we haven't even begun to use, and those are nullification and interposition. We need to use them aggressively in Texas. Those are both primarily legislative tools.
What are they?
Nullification and interposition. Nullification is passing state law that says that federal law, that one you just passed that you didn't have any constitutional authority to pass, has no effect in our state. Montana did that a couple of years ago with Real ID, for example. The Montana state legislature passed a law nullifying Real ID. They've made some effort leading the country on nullifying some of the gun banning stuff that's been coming out of Washington, D.C. So it is a tool available to the state. Interposition says we're not going to enforce that law here. It's not going to be enforced in our state. We need to use those tools. They're available to us. We haven't even tried using them. We've got a great Attorney General in the state of Texas.
Greg Abbott.
Great candidates stepping up and talking about running for that. So whether it's Greg Abbott or whether it's Ted Cruz or somebody else, that office is there to serve Texas and to defend Texas in the federal courts against an overreaching federal government. We need to encourage them to the maximum degree to defend the sovereignty of Texans and the freedom and liberty of individuals living in Texas.
Dan and Murphy, welcome to the Wells Report. What is your question for Debra Medina?
Ms. Medina, thanks for taking my question. The question is, would you be willing to execute secession of the state of Texas from the United States? Because the legislation I'm seeing in Washington is pointing in that direction, I feel.
Yeah, okay. And would you be willing to take Texas down that road, and do you think that Texans would follow you in it?
I've actually, made a statement on that, JD, and said that, and thanks for the question, Dan, said that I really want to see us pursue the remedies that keep the union whole aggressively, but if those are, in fact, ineffective, I believe Texans need to decide, and I would support whatever decision we Texans make on that issue.
What I want to know regarding that is the 10th Amendment makes it possible for the concepts you were talking about moments ago to go into effect. There is a part of the Constitution that allows for the states to also interpret the Constitution and decide whether or not they're going to have anything to do with that. That is the 10th Amendment.
That's right.
Rick Perry said that he would invoke that, and then when I asked him about it on this broadcast, specifically, he backed off. He said that's something that he really wouldn't want to do after spending an awful lot of time talking about how he would do that without blinking. At least that was my view of what he had to say.
Well, I think if you go back and read the founders and you look at what their intentions were when they gave us the language of the 9th and 10th Amendment, it clearly was that the states would be the deciders. We get to decide when you're overreaching that compact that we have with you, and the nullification and interposition of those laws are our right and our remedy. We've not exercised that, and that's unfortunate as we've seen more and more usurpation of our sovereignty as a state and our rights as individual Americans.
So, Debra Medina, our guest. Let's get to Greg in Plano. Greg, what's your question for Debra Medina?
You know, I'm definitely against KBI Hutchison and Rick Too Long Perry.
What is your question?
What about open carry? Are you a supporter of it?
Yes.
So, very simple. Simply spoken, simply asked, simply answered. So open carry would not be an issue here in the state of Texas. Never has been. It was.
I'm gonna camp on this a lot in this election. Two essential elements of freedom: private property ownership and gun ownership, and there can be no compromise and no surrender on either of those two issues if man's going to be free.
All right, we're talking with Debra Medina. She wants to be the Republican governor for the state of Texas. She's got a couple of very serious contenders: Kay Bailey Hutchison, Rick Perry. And the best part about it is that. We have her handcuffed to her phone, and she can't hang up. She's stuck with us, and so we're going to keep her beyond her time and talk with her for the balance of this week. Just a radio marathon that's going to start right now. Okay, we're not going to do that, but we will talk for the rest of the hour if she can stick around. You're listening to The Wells Report. This is the legendary Cliff.